Do the school
Oh,
bell.
cute little glass. Okay, well, here we are. Another episode of Mind You Media coming at you.
Wait. You seemed hesitant.
Okay, we're bringing actually a new thing to you. Starting today, we are tracing the rise and fall of Monique and Candace's friendship.
New
Uh,
series.
yes, new series. It's very exciting.
You are now watching Mind You Media.
Mind you.
We can't use that. We don't have the rights. You are now streaming Mind You Media. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and quite frankly, disinformation by some of our commenters about, what went down and like certain things being karma for Candace. But it's like karma for what?
Should
Let's
we
talk.
specify? Like,
Yeah.
so we did this series. Check out our TikTok for it. Giselle's plot against Chris Bassett. And in one of those clips, or maybe this is just before we launched that series, but in one of those clips, we do a reunion recap. I think it's season 6 reunion recap. Don't remember. But what we find is, Monique must be there, so it must be season 5 reunion. And the clip features Monique raising the fact of that the paternity lie that got circulated, the paternity rumor about how her youngest child was not Chris's child, and was in fact the love child of her and her trainer. And Monique is saying to Andy at the reunion, they were trying to bring forward this clip on the season, and Andy's like, it didn't air. And keep in mind, this is on the heels of that brawl between, where Monique beats Candace up, season 5. So Candace is like, shut up, Monique. No, what are you talking about? No, and the comments are, I don't want to say filled with, but more than one person is like, this is Candace's karma. They will turn around and do the same thing to her in the coming seasons. And this is what she gets for protecting Giselle. Now we were struck by that read of the situation because it's like, somebody just gets done beating me up. I'm gonna say whatever I need to say to disparage them. So this is where the idea for this series, The Rise and Fall of Candace and Monique's friendship, came from, because we want to give context to the fight. Like, we need to recall, we need a timeline, we need context, we need a close character analysis for each of them if we are to properly understand this.
Because people are also saying, like, Giselle, Candace was protecting Giselle, but it's like, if you recall, in the wake of Candace getting beat up, Giselle was unambiguously opposed to Monique about that, ostensibly at least. And Candace needed allies at that point. She needed somebody to be like in her corner unambiguously, especially because Karen was fence riding at that time. So it's like, you might forgive for thinking that Giselle was just as disgusted with Monique as she was.
Yeah, and we don't even need to accuse her of protecting Giselle. She was just disparaging Monique. That's what she was doing. She didn't say a word in defense of Giselle. She just said words that followed Giselle's attempt to be like, I didn't do it. She just said words to disparage Monique right afterwards. So it folds into a Giselle defense, but nothing she said was a literal defense of Giselle.
And that was season 5 reunion, as you said. They're now filming season 9. Still, people actively care about the Monique and Candace beef. Okay, rumor has it Monique was booked to be on Traders. Candace, as you know, she's pregnant. When she declined the offer to be on, rumor has it Monique was dropped. So,
Now we're stuck with just Robin Dixon, apparently.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I
wanted somebody else to do it.
You ruined my toast. I wanted to toast to that, but now I don't want to toast to like solo Robin on the. Oh my gosh.
No, but there are other people we're gonna tune in to watch. Okay, check out Traders season 3 for sure. But check out Kempire, our fellow commentator. Check out Kempire's channel, YouTube channel, for more on this at least on the rumors, because nothing is fully confirmed, but Monique is doing some cover-ups. So anyway, check out Kempire's channel for more on that story regarding Monique and Candace's supposed feature on Trader season 3.
All right. Well, I'll drink to that.
What are we drinking to?
You heard it.
Yeah.
All of that, that's what we're drinking
Drink
to.
your alcohol.
Okay. All right, but with that being said, let's get right into this new series. All right. We're starting with season 3 because that's Candace's first season on the show. At that time, Monique has been on the show for just 1 season. This is her 2nd season. What else is going on? Where else? Karen, we know, is embroiled in the scandal with Ray and his finances. Okay. Ray needed to pay taxes. Everybody's jumping on her for that. She was gangbanged, she might say. What else?
Literally. And
you gotta have millions to owe millions.
exactly. I think that point is not attended to enough. And this is not about Karen, but I want to note that it's Ray owed apparently $5 million in back taxes. And his story is that it was from the acquisition of another company by his company years ago. And so there was like a failure of accounting. It wasn't about like dodging. But I think the reasons for trying to like condemn Karen for this are tacky and weird. It's like, you're breaking the law by not paying your taxes, Uncle Sam. Like, shut the hell up. I hope they could get away with avoiding some taxes. More power to them. We're congratulating them on that. Don't pay them. Don't pay them.
They have enough.
It's also, I enjoyed on my season 3 rewatch seeing where Matt is. This is the introduction of Matt, Karen's assistant.
You would.
Anyway,
all right, who else?
Cherise has been demoted. If she was featured among the women with her champagne flute last season, she is now a friend of, and that's an important dynamic to attend to in the context of this, broader rise and fall of Candiace and Monique's friendship. Giselle is dating former NBA player Sherman. Somebody, we didn't remember Sherman. She said, "You love me, Sherman."
Yeah, she was really happy.
The girls liked them on FaceTime. It was maybe one of the last times we saw Giselle pleasant and not as and
that was really her shot. Her shot to be
happy. We saw her vulnerable and happy in love.
Yep. And then we also have Robin in season 3, who is just vibing in a new townhouse and still in a situationship with Juan.
But things are presumably being turned around. Robin feels like she's on the come up. Like if she was falling from grace in seasons 1 and 2, she's turning things around now.
Things are more stable for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, so that's a little recap.
Okay, but we should note some major conflicts that begin the season. They're lingering from the preceding season. They come to a head at the reunion, and so this is the residue of them to start off the season. First, Ashley and Robin are beefing. Robin is still mad at Ashley for insisting, "Robin, this is not conducive to a happy life." Your situationship with Juan, that's a quote. And what Robin
is that cut too close to home.
Cut too close. And what Robin insists is that Ashley married Michael when he had money. She doesn't know what it's like to build a man. She said build a man. Juan is a Build-A-Bear. That's
also it's like, that's what you built? Okay, girl.
That's 11.
If you go back and watch that clip, I was with him when he didn't have it, and then we had it, and then when he didn't have it, and then she insists that she built him, and it's like, sounds like you might have helped beget that downward spiral. So
yeah, that's what Juan thinks. Also, okay, but to that point about situationships, what's going on, Ashley is just moving back into her home with Michael at the beginning of season 3.
Yeah, what happened?
They had been separated for a whole 6 months, something that I totally blocked out. But it was all about her, allegedly, her relationship with her mom. Michael was like, I can't have it. I can't have it. We can't have these outside influences. You need to cut her off. And yeah, he also really doesn't want to have a kid. And you see that is really starting to bubble.
And expresses a worry that Ashley might become the mother her own mother was. Like,
Yes.
whew.
Yes. Yes.
And proceeded to have two. Jesus Christ.
Last but not least, we have Robin and Monique's conflict. Does anyone want to tell us about that?
I will. It basically happens because there's a reunion moment, a season 2 reunion moment, where Monique notes Giselle can't, rock with anybody who is not lesser than her, anybody who is not beneath her. And that's why her and Robin can manage to be such good friends. The implication there is that Robin is beneath Monique. Robin is
beneath Giselle.
Robin is beneath Giselle. Robin is holding on to this comment like it governs her entire life. She is pissed. She shows up at Chris Samuel's, season opening 40th birthday party / their housewarming, and literally confronts Monique about it. Literally gets into a fight with her about it. Which Monique, it should be noted in the context of that fight, is trying to minimize it. Robin's like, no. In an earlier moment, she's like, I don't rock with you actually, and Monique is like, why? Like, let's talk about it. And Robin's like, yeah, we'll talk about it. They don't actually talk about it before Monique invites Robin to Chris Samuel's 40th birthday party. And Robin shows up to Chris Samuel's birthday party and, more or less attacks. It's resentfully sitting there looking around at all Monique has in all her wealth. And it's like, you B-word. And then Monique is like, what are you doing here? What are you doing at my house? And I thought things were fine. It's like, no, you knew things weren't fine. You invited her anyway. And of course, Robin was just on her worst behavior. Like, that's a trigger for her. To call her lowly is a trigger for her.
A major trigger.
But I also want to just file that away for later, because it's like Monique's insults come in a particular package where Giselle is concerned. It seems like they always have a little carve out for her. It's like Giselle won't be anyone who's less than. It's like, so you're saying Robin is lowly, but like that preserves Giselle on a pedestal?
Exactly. So then we also have some major alliances, okay? An important one for this season is Charisse and Monique, okay? Monique has just moved. Okay, that's another big thing in season 3. She's just moved into Potomac. So she's gobbling up Charisse's contacts like ain't nobody's business, okay? Of course, we have Robin and Giselle, Pinky and the Brain, Dumb and Dumber, whatever you want to call them. We have GEBs, yes. We have Ashley and Giselle, okay? Ashley is really trying to get in good with the GEBs. At a certain point this season, she's really set her eyes on the other light-skinned women.
And I would argue that
too, right? Because she was not liked by Giselle early on, right? She was, Giselle derided her for being young and thotty and having wild hair.
And right, and for being with an older man. But I would argue Giselle has chosen Ashley as well. Like, it's not just one-sided. Giselle is like, I will make space for you, which is noteworthy because Robin and Ashley are in conflict, but Giselle goes, I like Miss Ashley now. I've grown fond of her.
Yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point, because I think Ashley probably gave up to some extent. But then, of course, is eager once she's shown a little bit of love,
Yes.
Then, as we've mentioned, Karen and her finances. This season is really Karen versus everybody, okay? Karen is like Detroit in here, all right? Karen, like every time other people are fighting, she's just happy it's not her, okay? Then, as Ellen mentioned, we have Ashley versus Robin. I don't remember why that fight is exact. Yeah, why is that fight exactly?
Yeah, I just said it because Ashley's criticizing Robin and Juan's relationship.
Oh, right. Okay, right.
Yeah.
But it's nothing, Then we have, it's a big deal to Robin, of course. Then we have Monique versus Robin as,
We
Ellen
just
also
noted, yeah.
said. All right. Moving on.
There's like some important, events, elements, dynamics to note that like provide a kind of necessary context for the Monique and Candace focus, right? Like, um, and these are more or less just like scenes in the life of their burgeoning friendship, right? So the first one we get is Ashley is hosting this kind of like weekly bliss brunch, she's calling it, at Oz, which is failing miserably. So this is like partly a marketing scheme. And at one of these brunches, Monique is the only other housewife present besides Ashley. And this is where Ashley introduces Monique and Candace. And they hit it off instantly. That's Catherine's dominant read of it. And I would say like Monique seems very lit for Candace, and Candace is kind of like, yes, I'm happy for whoever
They
wants
hit
to
it
invite
off.
me.
Yes, that's called hitting it off. Okay.
Okay, fine.
I cannot believe you just tried to say that and then you said that. Yes.
No, well, I'm just trying to say, like, if you ask me, it's like, like if this is a cartoon, Monique has like dollar signs in her eyes when she sees Candace, and Candace is just like, does anyone like me? Who likes me? Like,
and why do you think that is? Like, based on what we've seen of Monique so far, what we know of her, like, what is it that makes Monique especially lit to receive a new young hot thing called Candace?
I think she's like finally a brown skin woman, another brown skin woman, because the ratios are, I mean, they're obviously way off, but like she has Charisse already as her friend, and Charisse is the only other brown skin woman besides Monique. And so it's just like, okay, Candace as a brown skin woman. I also think, and here we're gonna bring the Enneagram back in. Candace has 3 energy, right? Like she's what I would call a 3-ish 8, which means like probably growing up, she was like raised to be somebody who was like valued on the basis of what she does, like on the basis of like how effectively she can meet the dominant expectations of the society, right? Like, can I be smart and cute and whatever? So like Candace is coming in with that, right? Candace is from pageants, so she has already a training in how like what kind of like perception she wants to curate. And Monique probably reads that and identifies strongly with it because Monique is a 3 as well, right? Like, and then I think, there's a series of kind of like on paper connections that Monique has reasonable grounds to be excited about. First of which, like, I went to Howard. My sister went to Howard. Like, I will put somebody in their place. Me too. My husband's name is Chris Samuels. He played for, Alabama. Yeah, he played for Alabama long ago. And Candace, my fiance's name is Chris. You see these on paper.
Chris played for the Redskins, though. Why does Alabama matter?
That's where he's from. He's from
Alabama. And maybe he did college ball in Alabama. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know what's interesting about that too? I mean, I'm asking about what it is you think Monique sees in Candace, partially because like as much as we love Candace here on this channel and have like come to identify with her movements in many ways, it's like her debut on season 3 is giving like, for me at least, like the least attractive version of Candace. She's doing like kind of Valley Girl performance, kind of like pageant prim proper princess. Like it's giving the like a less, matured, evolved version, which to be sure she was younger then. And so I'm curious too of like some of what Monique is also attracted to is like Candace's kind of like performance of propriety and like, like what would you call that?
Yeah.
Let me say, they meet in the context of a bliss brunch, okay, at Oz. So it's like the who's who of, 30s Black women in the DMV, okay? So everyone is seeming like you're describing right now. Yeah. I think Candace actually seems a little more real to Monique than other prospects. I think that Candace comes off to her and to me, honestly, as like fun and open and someone I could be friends with. Even if we now know Candace ends up being way cooler than that,
Yeah. Yes. And I would say the Valley Girl thing is like, for me, it's not, growth is not an irrelevant thing to consider, but I would just say that's her, like, this is a cocktail party persona, right? Like, especially for a show she's trying to get on where she knows elitism is the like dominant expectation, right? So it's like, and the context Candace is from, and she later will reference code switching in the context of that brunch. The context where Candace is from, it's like, she had socialized a sense, it's like, if I don't know you well, I'm gonna give this version. And she was a cheerleader. So like that's her, like, we don't know each other well persona. Like everybody has one of those, right? Like you might be reserved, you might be standoffish, you might be a Valley girl, like like bubbly, right? Is another way to call it. And I don't like it personally, but I also, it wouldn't be so strongly abhorrent to me that I wouldn't give her the benefit of the doubt. And I think what Candace was doing it's her namesake, I think she was being a little candid, a little open in a way that's like, when Monique met the other women, they're just like, get away from me. So
Yes.
somebody who's being open, Monique is like, okay, you aren't, like, this is a breath of fresh air from the hazing I've been suffering from the other women on this
She
cast.
literally says that. Candace is a breath of fresh air. Like she receives her that way. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. It's important to note on that first meeting where they hit it off, they're like, "Oh, Howard, Chris, my Chris is white, but he got a brown penis though. Okay, save that for later. We'll come back to it.
See, for
But
instance, Giselle Bryant's plot against Chris Bass.
yeah,
It's relevant.
And then we also at that very same meeting, immediately before actually, I feel like even we as viewers witness, or not even, it's like immediately we see Ashley talking shit about Candace.
Yeah, in the
Okay.
confessionals.
Yes, it's like, I know Candace from the pageant world. Okay, that's all you had to say. But she's like, oh, she was an off-brand pageant. Okay,
And
immediately
what's important to note about that, just for the sake of background, Ashley did a pageant once by happenstance. Candice grew up in pageants, right? Like, so it's kind of like you didn't even need to make that pivot because, like, even if your title is more renowned or something, it's like that's her milieu. Why would you take that one away from her? Like, that's her scene. It's not even your scene, Ashley. Like, what difference does it make?
And if my title were more renowned, which it is just factually Ashley's is.
Did Ashley have her title or did she just compete?
Well, she was Miss Maryland well, that's the thing. So it's like she was Miss Maryland in like Miss America.
Exactly. So she didn't win Miss America.
Right. But she won in Maryland, like she won Miss Maryland. Whereas Candace won the whole thing of Miss United States, which is different from Miss USA.
Yeah. Does this flashback to that conflict, Portia and Kenya?
Portia's still a real thing. It's just that
Portia's inaugural season, because Portia deliberately goes, we have Miss USA. Really, bitch? Like, Kenya's going to kill her because her title is Miss America.
With all that being said,
see, it's hard to keep straight.
It is hard to keep straight. With all that being said, it's just very clear. She makes reference to her butt at some point. I don't know if that's at the Bliss brunch or whatever.
Out of lust. She wants a butt like Candace's.
Yeah, that's also her move, right? She lusted after Monique first got there too. Like, I just think beautiful too. Like, I kind of want to make out with her or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Interesting. So that's like the first impression for Monique. That's Ashley's, opening impressions. What about the other ladies? What do they think about Candace?
Well, I just want to note one more thing besides Ashley's glaring jealousy about and we didn't use the word jealousy just now, but I did, because it's like, why the hate? Yeah. What's the need to be a hater? Especially if you compliment her in the next breath, it suggests motive, right? Another thing that is emerging in the context of this early meeting is you can see Ashley a little jealous that Candice and Monique are hitting it off, because at that first meeting, she's like,
Mm-hmm.
What are you two talking about? And
And then
then when Candace went,
in the confessional, she's like, they're just yapping like two little lap dogs. Like, you know, she says it in a way that's like, you could argue if she's being shady, but obviously you're calling them little annoying dogs for
yes.
a reason.
And in the moment, she's not betraying any sense of disapproval, except on her face quietly. She's still trying to get down, right? She's like, okay, ladies. So when Candace says, oh, you have some stuck-up friends, I know how to like tell somebody about themselves. It's called code switching. And Monique is like, yes. And then Ashley's like, okay, I'll take notes. I guess Black girls who know. And it's like, like literally going like this, taking notes. So she's like indulging in the performance of, like we're the ones who can teach you, Ashley. But then in the confessional, she's being shady.
Yeah. Other first impressions.
Giselle says she likes Candace, but she thinks she's loud. There will be a like bubble soccer event hosted by Candiace and Chris where Giselle is like really, I think, formally meeting Candace for the first time. So, I like her. She's a little loud.
Yep.
I believe that's what she registers early on.
Can't give a full-throated, approval of anybody, so has to find some reason to.
The first time Robin meets Candace, she's so stuck on how much she hates Monique that she doesn't even register it. But then when they do connect, she's like, I actually like, it's fun energy. People.
Yeah, but what she gives her is also jealous bully. Like she's like, so who are you? I have authority and power in this group. Can I believe, please? Like,
please.
Yes.
But you don't have no more as a job, so we'll see how far that.
Karen notably likes Candace, and like, although they won't like bond very strongly this season, that happens a little later. Like, Karen is warm to her. Karen is warm and nurturing.
Karen is looking for a mentee.
It's real. Like when it gets too real for Candace, Karen is almost like chiding her from a loving place. Like, listen, girl, I really want better for you. You have to do it this way,
But the general sense I will say is that there's maybe some immaturity. Giselle and Charisse definitely push that narrative, but it's important to note Candace is only 30 this first season. Okay. So some of these women are like, could be her mom / maybe Dorothy's age.
And it's important to note that I think Candace regards them as like her mom's peers, because whenever she's around the older women, she's just like, my mom. Like you get because they're literally the same age as her mom. And she's like, you'd love my mom. It's almost like she's trying to facilitate connections for her mom. You know what I mean? Like,
because we know the mom can't make friends.
Dorothy's got plenty of friends, okay? She calls them patients. So I think the women are like put off by it. Like, why do you keep invoking your mom? What are you, a kid? And I think in Candace's mind, there is a like unhealthy relationship, which we'll get into when we pivot to season 4, because that's when we get the necessary context. But of course, already at this early stage, we see Dorothy on bad behavior. But I think from Candace's perspective, it's like, I am close with my mom, so I know exactly what it's like to relate to you older women. And the older women are like, stop talking about your mom. Like, you're an adult, aren't you?
It really shines a light on how weird Housewives is as a thing, because why are these women together on a bus? But yeah. So are any final thoughts on Candace's maturity level, the hazing she went through in that arena, or should we get into a close read where we see some real hazing going on?
I think we should get into a close read, and just to note, there might be legitimacy to what the women are regarding as Candace's like apparently codependent relationship to her mother, or a kind of immaturity on the part of somebody who's invoking their mom constantly. But I think the more relevant thing here for these women who have very little evidence to make such hasty judgments is that Candace is 30 and you're 52 or something, right?
Like, at least, yeah. Been there. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Okay. So let's get into a close read of cryotherapy. Does that make you look younger?
Yeah, it's like, what is it? Coldness on your,
Presumably.
go into a cold room for some
Yeah.
to get your,
Suspend the activity of your body. Oh, it brings the blood back to the middle so that it can recirculate in a kind of renewed way. It's like goes to the middle, picks up all the nutrients that tend to live in the middle, and then will recirculate to the extremities. That's the point of it.
I have follow-up questions on
Allegedly.
cryotherapy, but yeah, what if you have dirt in your gut? Anyways,
That's
um,
and
a great
recirculate.
question. That's a great question.
the ladies go to cryotherapy, not all of them, okay? This is Candice, Monique, Ashley, and Charisse. Okay. This
Almost
is
forgot
fairly I almost who could forget Charisse? Who?
it.
And this is before they go on their first trip to Neema Colon. Okay. They're, seeming like they're having fun. They're getting along. It's Candace's first meeting of Charisse.
No, it's
Um,
not. It's this is following Bubble Soccer. That Bubble Soccer is that event Chris
yes,
and
yes,
Candace
yes.
host earlier. So this is
This
almost
is
like
the
a
second.
follow-up to that.
Yes, yes,
There's
yes. All
like a
right.
notable group dynamic of like the people who have connections. It's like Monique and Charisse are buds at this point, and then of course, um, Monique and Candace have hit it off as facilitated by Ashley. So it's like this little four-way grouping of the women that's like gelling so far. And it's like
Mm.
Monique obviously wants Candace to be cool with Charisse too, because that's her friend.
Right. And Candace is like, I think basically some topics that get raised at Bubble Soccer resurface. So the question of Candace's relationship to her mother comes up. The question, like, and specifically like Giselle's like, is your mom gonna pay for Chris's other children to also move up north? Like Giselle asks in a kind of shady moment in the context of Bubble Soccer, but it's not that shady. It's like you can see Giselle, it's shady, but it's like it's a kind of like low level shade for Giselle.
It was
That's
a
the point.
lighthearted barbecue. Oh, like, a quick,
And they named it as such. They were like, okay, Shay, ha ha ha, moved past it
Mhm,
quickly.
mhm,
But it's
mhm.
interesting because that corroborates the earlier point that we touched on about this kind of way that Candace continues to invoke her mother. It's like part of the shade, I think, is because they're just like, girl, damn, why you keep bringing this woman up? And then Therese at Cryotherapy, I think, wants to defend Giselle to some extent by being like, it's
Yeah.
a fair question. I mean, you do bring your mom up a lot, girl.
And there aren't too many moms as involved in their children's life as you are. But the truth is, Charisse is literally BFF with her teenage daughter. So,
One such
it's actually
mother.
a crazy thing to come out of Charisse's mouth. But I have an idea. The reason I think Candace is bringing this up is because Candace is lit, as we know, to be candid with the women. She's lit to share herself. And it seems to me the issues with her mom are most pronounced in this moment because she's planning her wedding.
Yep.
And she also regards it's not this season's tagline, it's next season's tagline, but she also regards her marriage to Chris as potentially liberating her from a too close relationship to her mother, a relationship with her
Yep.
mother. She would like to create distance, she would like to create some distance between her and her mom. So I think this is playing on Candace. Like, it's like, hey, women, will you advise me as women my mother's age who also have your own children? Like, let me begin to share myself with you. Let me begin to be vulnerable, because what else is a reality show except for a place for you to lay bare all your vulnerabilities for America to judge?
And Giselle says, a place for me to abuse you for laying forth all those vulnerabilities. Yes.
Precisely. And Charisse tried to get in on it too, even though she has been a laughingstock the preceding 2 seasons.
Yes.
So in a moment they're talking about Candace's engagement. Her ring is featured, and Charisse goes, after they discuss Giselle bringing up Candace's mom, and Candace's mom's paying for their stuff. Charisse goes, "Did your mom pay for that ring too?" Ah! Monique, interestingly, busts out in laughter, even though
Yep.
she was just saying Giselle's commentary was shady at Bubble Soccer. And Candace goes, "No, my mom didn't pay for my ring, Charisse. Haha, very funny. No, my mother did not pay for my ring." So she counters it. She stands up for herself. right? She goes,
Right.
enough of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Then Ashley brings up an upcoming trip, their domestic trip, their annual domestic trip, where she will take the women to Neema, this kind of outdoors resort based in Western Pennsylvania. So then Ashley goes, it's like, the question is, all of us? 7 of us. And what we hear from Charisse is, 7? 7? Who's 7? And Candace is like, I'm going. And Sharice is like, 7? I said, we're 6. Who is 7? We are 6.
And Monique really tries to, oh, you're coming, Candace, like be excited, perform like, oh, we're gonna, be girlfriends on the trip, to downplay and distract from the shade coming from Charisse.
Yes, but it's clear to me that Charisse is saying this like, we were 6. We were 1/6. She's no longer a housewife in the opening credits, right? She's now a friend of. So it's almost like she's being confronted with the fact that Candace has displaced her. Candace is the newest housewife. Charisse is on the out. So now she has to contend with the fact that Candace has her spot.
Well, and 6 is interesting because it's like heavy on her heart that like, if it's 7, it's not going to be 7 for long. Like, like Candace's addition for the season is a replacement. It's not like the cast is now going to be 7. You're not a peach or a cherry blossom anymore.
Yes, and I just want to say that it's important to note for viewers who have not seen the season in a while, Charisse is working like she's got a fucking cherry blossom, okay? That bitch is in every fucking episode, okay? You wouldn't know. If you didn't see the opening credits, you would have no idea she had been
remember.
I did
not. Yes, and working harder than she did when she had a secured spot the preceding 2 seasons. So she's feeling that fire.
Yes.
Okay, and just before we move on to the next scene, the way Candace responds to Charisse going, we were 6. Candace goes, well, you're 7 now. Get into it. Again, standing up for herself in a little clever moment.
Yes. All right. So then from there, all right, the next big thing that happens is that Ashley, Monique, and Candace go swimsuit shopping and general shopping, but like, okay, Neema shopping, right? And note, right, these 3 people were also at Cryotherapy. We're also at the beginning. There's a lot of time spent the first half of season 3 building up this trio, okay? The young guns, okay? Candace, Monique, and Ashley. Okay, so they go shopping. They're trying things on. What happens then?
It's important where it starts. I always remember where it ends, but where it starts is Ashley, who in that prior scene at Cryotherapy, Ellen was noting the reactions when Charisse said, "Did your mom pay for that ring too?" Ha ha ha. Ashley, a like sucker for some drama mess, is like,
oh yeah,
as if Charisse has like, shot a dagger and it's just like, oh, this is messy drama that I need to like be party to. So at the shopping trip, Ashley's like, well, I feel like I sense some tension, like playing up this discord between Charisse and Candace. Like, is that right? Did I sense some tension? What? I mean, that comment. So she kind of occasions the conversation between all of them. And Monique,
and I would also note, I don't think Ashley's making it up. I think Charisse is holding something against Candace. So it's like, I noticed a little bit of tension. There was some tension. Like, I think that it was legitimate and it was thick, right? Like, whereas some like congeniality might be happening between Charisse and Monique, between Charisse and Ashley. She said, you don't like Candace. I can tell. And of course, Ashley being jealous, she's looking for an ally, or she's looking to exploit a potential opportunity to let her resentments out.
You're right.
And Candace notes, yeah, like, I mean, I think at that point she brings up the Giselle shade from earlier, and she's just like, I am not interested in Giselle. No, thank you. She brings up Charisse's comment, and Monique insists, if someone had asked me if my mother bought my ring for my husband, I would pull off those Cryotherapy massage strap-in boots that we were all hooked up to, rip them off, get out of my seat, and go in her face, bye, 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 bye. She does a whole little demo. Okay. She does a whole little demo, and Candace is like, point taken. Yes, I didn't even take it that seriously. I think I might have said something in the moment, but point taken. Yes, yes, yes. Never attacked her. That's a cool thing to do.
Mm.
I think what we find in that context is Monique is lit to relate to Candace like a mentee, and she seems to be betraying this close alliance she now has with Charisse by telling Candace that she should have been confronting her. Like, if I wanted peace between my friends, I would not advise someone to do that. And over such a comment that does not merit that.
Yes, you're strapped into some spa device talking about I'd rip off, get in the face. No. To your sister? What?
But you know, this is like what we are on to with Monique, that she seems to be positioning herself more and more between Candace and Charisse, because then she goes on to say, well, you know, it might just be that she doesn't like that her friend is getting close with another friend. That nervous laughter that Monique loves to kind of fall back on.
Oh my
So
God. It's so annoying.
very annoying. It's very
Follows
annoying.
every comment she makes, and it's like nothing she says is really funny. So you're just like, what are you laughing about? Like, it underscores how nervous it is,
Oh
because
my
it's like, girl,
gosh.
you didn't make a
Not
joke.
funny.
My mom does that. Not to be a
Okay,
Candace,
well.
but anyways, yeah, no, it was
No, so in that moment, she like, you know, betrays the sense that she, I feel like, has that like, oh, I'm the one, I'm stuck between these two people I like. And her and Ashley both kind of hype up Candace to say something, but Monique in particular is just like, if somebody says something, just say it in the moment. You don't sit with these women.
Yeah, she says, say it in the moment.
Do you think that Monique actually feels stuck? I feel like Monique positioned herself in the middle.
Well, yeah, like narrates herself as.
And and like I said, when she said, I bet she doesn't like her friend becoming friends with someone else. If you ask me, Monique, you read that room wrong. The girl is worried about losing her spot on the show. That's why she says, we were six, not seven. We were like, you could see, and then the production makes a point to zoom in on Charisse being like this.
Well, I don't even think that Monique necessarily thinks that's true, but she will just re-narrate. It's a reframe that's like very deliberate. Like, okay,
that makes it about her ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, Kristen, what happens when the shopping trip is winding to a close? Candace is changing back in the fitting room, and Ashley and Monique are at the cash wrap.
Yeah, so I feel like Ashley is with Monique about to check out, and it's just like, so what do you think? You think Candace is ready for this trip with all the women? And the way Monique is so quick to say, no. And then Ashley's like, oh, you like, no, Ashley's face, she's like, oh, I'm almost like making casual conversation. I didn't think you were going to take me up so strongly, but okay, tell me, what's the problem? What do you think is going to happen?
And on what basis would you have to insist she would not stand up for herself? Because if you'd been paying attention, Monique, she does stand up for herself, and I would say it's appropriately calibrated to the shade. Like,
yes,
to the shade and to her like level of knowing this woman. Like, I'm not going to over endow some woman I don't know with some ulterior motives until I get to know that you're about that.
Right.
So Monique is just like, well, I just think she needs to say stuff in the moment. Like, she can't hold it. I don't want to see her coming out, blah, 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 blah. She says that to Ashley just moments after she tells Candace, if I were you, I would have taken off my boots and got in her face. Blah, 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 blah. So she's like, she's just undermining herself. She's like betraying what she just said.
Meanwhile,
is she saying that at that point, or is she just saying at the cash wrap? Is she just saying, I don't think she's ready? Like,
she says
what
she doesn't think she's ready, but then she's just like, I don't want her to like want it to come out as like, you know, basically like over and above what's necessary. She goes on to say that. Yeah.
Candace pops her little head out from the fitting room because she's overhearing this, and she goes, I'm gonna do it. And Monique busts out laughing because what Candace is saying is, I'm going to stand up for myself as you advised. Don't worry about it, which Monique had just got done saying, I don't think she's prepared to do.
Right. My read of it is that Monique thought she was gonna not address things in the moment.
Exactly. Hold them in, which is the dominant accusation. You
and where would she get that? Where would she get that from? Where would she get that idea from?
Projection, sensuous, sexy, erotic. That's how I reference projection. Y'all singing it to Usher's classic.
All right,
Okay.
so fast forward, we
Mhm.
are headed to. Oh no,
Wait,
Neema
Yeah.
Colon.
wait.
I'm pausing. Are you pausing for the thing
before-
I'm about to pause for?
Before we move off of shopping to go to Neema Colon, just note for later, part 2, Ashley and
Yeah.
Monique are hungry after they shop.
Yes, that's what I was about
Candace
to
goes
say.
home.
They're
Yes.
they're hungry and
They are
thirsty.
so
And
hungry
thirsty.
and
We'll find out how
so
thirsty coming up next.
Note. Meanwhile, Candace drives home alone. Okay, so
Mhm.
then,
No, we need to note it now because
yeah, let me say this.
what we know of what happens.
What we know of what happens is that Candace goes off home. Monique and Ashley end up going to lunch together, and they have, drinks with their lunch, as anyone would.
Women
Okay.
of leisure want to do.
Yes. Okay. Ladies who lunch. Okay. Then, on the ride home, they both end up driving home separately. Monique ends up hitting a tree, and the car is in a ditch. The car is in a ditch. Okay.
It's not funny, but Giselle will later refer to this, which Katherine found hilarious. Monique decides to take a siesta in a ditch.
Did you see my recording was like that? Anyways, yes. So Monique claims she just fell asleep, but they had a number of drinks at the lunch. So it's like, okay, what induced that slumber? Was it that you're
Right.
overworked?
And that question becomes relevant later on
Later
in the
on.
season. But what's important to note here is the sprinter that's taking them to Neema Colon picks them up in Monique's driveway. So when Ashley shows up to get ready for that trip, she sees the damage to Monique's car. Monique shows it to her and goes, yeah, like I totaled this, I don't know, fancy car. And the damages amounted to this much money. It's totaled, but at least I'm alive.
Yeah.
It was a bad tree that got hit, huh?
Oh yeah, she almost hit 2 trees. The first tree blunted her contact with the next tree, apparently.
Jesus.
Yo, see.
Right. We'll pick
And
up this
so
later.
she starts off Neema Colon talking about whiplash. And anyways, they get on this bus. And the ride to Neema Colon is like 4 hours. Okay. So a lot
Everybody's
happens.
talking, drinking, having a good time. Ashley is giving some context for the trip. My gramps took me here once when I was younger. Giselle says, once? I thought it was many times you've been to Neema Colon. No, it's a little too expensive, but this is a key memory for me. The other things we used to do in the summer is we would, camp in our trailer at Indian Acres. Giselle clearly hangs on to Ashley saying it was Neema Colon was expensive because she goes, a trailer? So you was in a trailer park? And that's your fun memory.
Yes.
And everybody hears it as the ugly sentiment it is, even though she tries to walk it back. Everybody's just like, Giselle, come on.
She doesn't even try and walk it back. And like everybody's nodding along when Ashley's talking like, oh, and you also went to Indian Acres. Okay. And then she injects it. And then you see people, Robin is like, like people are then.
Tries to be like, no shade. It's a question. It's a question.
This is from a woman who claims I've warmed up to Miss Ashley and I really like her. It's like, then why are you lit to try and disparage her for her grandfather's circumstances as a child while she's having we don't even like Ashley, and it's nasty, like nasty.
That's how you can tell. That's how you can tell Giselle has her own anxieties, because it's like, what do you think you're coming from, girl? You thought you want us to think you were from the.
And as Monique aptly notes, Giselle's anxieties often concern homeownership because she's renting. So when she said, like in the confessional, Monique says, recalling that moment of Giselle's shade, like, why is Giselle always worried about somebody's home? Maybe she should try to own a home and then worry about it, or own a home or 5. Recalling that infamous moment, season 2, when Giselle goes, you don't have a home? And Monique goes, I have 5 homes.
My thing is, how is it that people could watch this show and still think Giselle is not anti-Black. She is denigrating people for being loud and lacking money. It's just like, what?
And
those are her go-to things.
And those things are true about her as well. Those are
what
true
is the other
her
one?
own qualities.
Fitting in with the woodwork. That's that's
Right.
third.
Right.
Okay, that one she got on them. She is not medium brown. Okay,
She got on
you win, Giselle. You win. So on the heels of this shade, which is widely noted by the others, Monique goes, "What's worse? What's worse was Charisse making a comment when we were all at cryotherapy earlier this week, asking if Candace's mother paid for that ring on her finger." So let me make clear. Monique brings that back up.
She says, "Want to know real? You think that's shade? This is shade."
Can I also just note, as I mentioned before, another way that Monique is carving out a space for Giselle. It's like I don't even think she's doing this on purpose, but her desire for Giselle's approval continuously makes her be like, well, what's worse than that is what Charisse did. That's supposed to be your girl. Charisse is supposed to be.
Not only what's worse than that, it brings something back up for Giselle to pick on, because we already know, and I'm glad you said that. We already know Giselle already was playing in this little theme of, Candace's mom pays for everything for her. And the way Monique introduced it, so, Candace is telling us what her mom pays for versus her husband pays for. It's like, oh, that's not how I would have characterized the conversation. That's how I would characterize it if I wanted someone to seize an opportunity to continue to make fun of Candace.
Yep.
And she goes, so then she's showing her rock, and Charisse, this one gonna go, did your mom pay for that too? So what happens? Candace goes, yeah, she did say that it was a shady bitch moment. You had a shady bitch moment. And then everyone else is talking like, yes, that was shady. Ha, indeed.
How many times Charisse on hearing shady bitch is like, shady
bitch? Bitch?
Do you know she says
she called me?
She says it maybe 7 times. A bitch. She
no one's listening. Bitch. No one's listening.
Bitch. She got a bitch. And everybody
finally, Giselle takes the bait. Like, I think Charisse is trying to say something. Oh, bitch. Oh, Candace, you called her a bitch. Now that's nasty.
Yep. So
Charisse insists, don't call me no bitch. Candace goes, then don't call me, you were being
a little
shady.
girl. She's like, little girl. Yeah.
Yes. She said, I didn't call you a bitch. I said it was a shady bitch moment. She contextualizes. She stands by what she said. She says, no. I'm not making a wholesale assessment of your character. I said you had a moment that was shady bitchness. Right? And then Charisse is like, little girl. Okay, geriatric granny, little girl. Back and forth for a while. Monique gets up out of her seat, positions herself right physically between them. Literally.
Yes. What were you going to say, Kristen?
I was going to say, it's important to note when Candace clarifies, I'm saying a shady bitch moment. Candace said almost the exact same thing at cryotherapy. She said, okay, shady moment. I see. She doesn't say bitch, obviously, but she's so the same thing was said, but Charisse is just lit to have her moment because her cherry blossom is dwindling.
Yes. And Monique is lit to misread what had happened the first time around because Candace did indeed stand up for herself. So now she's the one rehashing what should have been let go. Right.
Yes. And now Monique has, as Ellen said, physically pushed her body in between. She goes from one side of the bus, she walks over to the other side, sits in between them, and now suddenly it's like, ooh, like little narcissist.
And in the context of that conflict, she would have brought it up to say it's worse than what Giselle said. Then sitting there, she goes, it's fun shade. It's fun shade.
She can't keep her position straight. Like, she does this.
She has no, why she doesn't want to. She doesn't care to.
So nobody, I think, expects for Candace to quickly keep up with, I think everybody expected that Charisse, when her seniority was going to shut something down, even though she's not quick or witty or interesting. Candace is going back. But Sata moment. I'm gonna have a Candace moment. I ain't got no nicknames. Okay,
we don't want Shasha to come out. Candace said, "I don't have an alter ego. I'm just gonna come out.
I'm gonna just pop out and show me."
Yeah.
That's what she said. She basically
said, "I'm just gonna come out."
That's right. And because she's so quick, you see Giselle be like, "Oh, she's annoying" in the confessional. But you know what you also see? You see Karen having a ball when Candace is like, "Okay, geriatric grandma," like keeping pace with Cerise. Karen goes,
"Because you said about me."
Yes. And while Karen does have a conflict with everyone that season, she has, her long-standing conflict with Charisse.
With Charisse and with Giselle, who is the main one coming for her neck about the finances, the raised tax.
Is Charisse opposed to her at this point?
Yes.
But they're in a temporary truce.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Karen's excitement, I think, really exposes the fact that she's not
does not like Charisse. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just offer a concept, a term to think about what Monique is doing here with Charisse and Candace?
Ah, yes.
I would call it triangulation. I've done this
before.
You
didn't make up the term.
Like, this is not the Delta symbol, nor is it the rock symbol.
Like
it's very Illuminati.
It's giving the rock is in the building.
Yeah,
I know, right? And where I'm from,
blood.
that would be the dominant reference is the rock. No, triangulation, where Monique lives here at the peak.
Who is doing the baby's blood?
Yours truly.
Okay, go on.
The Carters. Okay. So Monique is here at this point on the triangle. That's Candace, that's Charisse, right? Like what we mean by triangulation as a psychological concept for those who don't know it, and I'm gonna give a real cheap, quick and dirty sense of it. It's like
get in there.
Monique positions herself between two people, more or less so that the conflict created by those two people affirms her sense of importance in their lives.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like, rather than have like a harmonious three-way friendship, or rather than have like a discrete friendship over here with Candace and a discrete friendship over here with Charisse, and recognize that these two don't get along, she will facilitate, enable, inflame a conflict between them, because then she can, and Monique repeatedly calls herself a peacemaker this episode and this season, she will repeatedly position herself between them, because then there's a like need for her, right? Like then she can facilitate their competing for her affection. Like even if that's not what's on their mind, if she continually puts herself between it, as she literally did on that bus, then those two women will regard her as the thing to fight over. That's the aspiration, right? The thing to fight over, the thing to protect and defend. And earlier she said, I suspect Charisse is jealous. That wasn't our read, but now this is Monique literally materializing that sensibility. Like, it's jealousy. They're competing for my love.
Girl.
Sicko. Yeah, and that really comes to a head at once they arrive in Neema Colon, and they have, women are spending time together. The dinner that they all share. What?
Briefly, when they arrive to Neema Colon, they have to transport themselves to some place to eat, and it's Giselle, Karen, and maybe Charisse in one car, and it's Robin, Monique, Candace, and Ashley in another car. And Candace is explaining to Monique, and also kind of Kiki in the back with Ashley too, but explaining to Monique, listen, I like Charisse, but you're not gonna call me no little girl and just, I'm gonna be cool with that. And at the point that Candace says, listen, I like Charisse, you see Monique go, Charisse is amazing. Charisse is amazing. Okay, she's amazing. Candace is like, but you can't call me no little girl and not have me pop back off. And then Monique importantly says, well, listen, don't forget, Giselle's the one who called you a little girl first. So it's important that she re-emphasizes Giselle at that moment. We neglected to say at the end of the bus scene, Ashley also proffered her account that I think Monique actually brought up what happened at cryotherapy because she wanted Candace to go at Giselle on her behalf, But that's just me. That's what she said.
And it's like it didn't seem to make sense in that context because it's like, well, why would you bring up the Charisse Candace conflict? But when we get later to the car, you can imagine Ashley filmed that confessional in full recognition of that and the events that follow. Because Candace goes, "Oh yeah, Giselle's gonna get it too." After Monique says, "Don't forget, Giselle said it first." Oh yeah, Giselle's gonna get it too. Robin's in the front seat, like,
and Giselle goes on to get it.
and Giselle goes on to get it, but Robin does not go on to run tell that. Interestingly, what she might do in that moment is go, Monique is stirring, and then make a plot against, plan to get her comeuppance with Monique. That's what she might, because she's fixated on Monique at this moment.
That makes a lot of sense for what comes later.
It does. And it's also important to note with Kristen's point about, Ashley, bearing witness to these moments, all of these flip-flops with Monique. It's like there is a growing separation between Monique and Ashley that then affects this trio that we start out with, Monique, Ashley, Candace. Okay.
Yes. So after those cars transport them from the main house of Neema Colon, they just get off the Sprinter, the cars transport them to their little home that they're staying in. It's like a villa, basically. They have a meal there, right, when they get off. And the meal is where Candace lets Giselle have it, right? She goes, "You stay over there with your greens." This is a famous scene where it's just interesting because of Candace's audacity at challenging these women who presume to have seniority. And it's a glimpse into the Candace we know and love of, contemporary worlds. So that meal happens. And then the next day, after a series of separate, smaller group outings, they come back together for another meal. And somebody asks, "Oh, those of you who went fly fishing, I believe, those of you who went fly fishing, how did it go?" And that was Karen and Giselle and Monique, at least. How did it go? And they said, Karen said, "Oh, we talked about everything and everyone."
And Charisse is also there.
Okay, and Charisse is there. And Candace goes, "Well, what was the general consensus?" Monique is the first to chime in. "With respect to you, I was just saying that." It's like Candace said, "What was the general consensus?" Like, clearly she wanted to know what they thought about her, but Monique was saying, "What we said about you." That's the person who she chooses to give it. Okay. I was just saying, I didn't want you to get into this space where you were all yelling at everybody. Again, we see the performance of conflict.
Doing all that.
Monique was literally coaching her to do all that. And so when she brings this performance back up, we're having deja vu. Like, girl, you said this, but you were affirming that behavior earlier. So now you're telling Candace, in the company of all the women, I didn't want you to get there. Of course, she's referencing that meal from the preceding day when Candace lets everybody have it. I mean, by everybody, Charisse and Giselle. And she's saying, I didn't want you to handle things that way.
It's so interesting. It's interesting what Monique wants that she can't avow, that she then puts onto someone else, but then she can't abide, because it's like, you ostensibly want Candace to go at Giselle because Giselle won't let you be friends with her, and you want that desperately. But then when Candace goes at Giselle on Candace's behalf, and you witness that, you don't want it because it feels like it compromises your ability to be close to Giselle. What is she... and maybe it's not that Candace is turning up that compromises it, but if Monique is friends with Candace and Candace turned up at Giselle, then that might continue to put her at a distance from being friends with Giselle.
Yes, I think it's not necessarily Candace taking up for herself, but I mean, we've all lived long enough, okay, that you have a plan sometimes and you imagine it going a certain way. And when you see the plan is not, I think Monique is seeing how things aren't lining up, and Candace is being received poorly, and Monique doesn't want that at all. She thinks she wants the conflict, like Giselle being dethroned. She thinks she wants that, but when it actually comes to it, it's like uncomfortable, awkward. She's being judged. She doesn't end up looking good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, she doesn't actually
I would
want
say
that.
like it's okay. It's like, by the way, like there is a saying, can't beat them, join them. Monique is lit to try both strategies at any given time. And she rarely tries the beat them strategy with Giselle. She talks a lot of shit in the confessionals about how I don't have no time for Giselle. I will not. Only when Giselle is most naked in her violations of Monique does Monique ever stand up for herself. Think season 2 when Giselle is literally in her house with Cal, like, she always talking, da 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 da, and maybe insulting her teeth. Even she's always that's when Monique goes, because her friend, aided by her friend Gigi, Monique, they're talking about you, and I'm gonna beat them up for you. Like, Gigi is the one who's really lit. Monique is like, I'm accepting you as my family, and you are not being nice to me. That's Monique's idea of a confrontation against Giselle.
But I think if you can't join and beat him, I think when Candace came on the scene, Monique had it in her mind, we're going to use Candace to beat him. And then when the plan was set into motion, she was like, this is awkward. This is not good.
She was going to use Candace to beat him, but she was never going to risk herself to beat him. She was never going to risk a direct confrontation with Giselle where she calls her out and you know what I mean? Like, if triangulation is this woman's strategy, triangulation is a mode of manipulation, and it might be done unconsciously, but it's a mode of manipulation. It is the strategy of someone who is not self-assured enough to confront the bully. So she has to be, her tactics are circuitous. So when she's there with Charisse and Giselle and Karen at the fly fishing, she has to seek the approval of, this is also what threes do, right? She has to seek the approval of the group. She's not about to go against that group. So she's like, yes, that behavior was inappropriate. Ha ha ha. And when at the table, Candace asked, what was the discussion? Monique is not going to let them say, your friend was talking shit about you. She has to out herself. She has to get ahead of the story. She knows to do that. She knows to say, I will speak, I will volunteer that I disapproved of your behavior. Okay, what happens next? Ashley goes, on the contrary, Monique, I think Candace followed our advice to a T. She did exactly what we told her, which is to confront those women head on and get buck with them. So I don't know what you're saying now. Giselle goes, Robin goes, so you are lip flopping? Are you lip flopping?
That was actually, even though I don't like Ashley or Robin, it was cathartic for me to see both Ashley and Robin in the confessional. When Robin was like, she didn't think her friend would be sitting next to her. I was like,
and confront her with the shit she's been feeding each of them. She nailed it in that analysis. Of course, it's cathartic because Monique otherwise would be getting away with these manipulations, these naked and ugly manipulations. Like, you ensnare someone in your web, you tell somebody you're their friend, put a battery in there, you need to stand up for yourself. And it's not like Candace is manipulable. Candace is already like a turnip queen like that, right? So all you did was say, lean in, girl.
More than say, she acted it out. She rehearsed it. She rehearsed it with her, you know?
And then denied it when Candace was like, well, Monique, you did tell me at the shopping trip, like maybe Charisse was jealous because you and I were getting close. Monique said, I said it in a jokingly way.
She first said, let's not twist my words.
Right.
You said that verbatim. Like, what do you mean?
So then Robin says, even at the dinner, like, okay, so then wait, Candace was getting on the bus already thinking these things, having her guard up, being on guard for Charisse.
What you said about Charisse.
Exactly.
Okay, so to reflect what we're witnessing, like, let's say triangulation is the key term, right? Monique meets this Candace woman early in season 3, has stars in her eyes, or as I would say, dollar signs, which is my way of saying she sees an opportunity. Okay. And then the way she begins to make use of this opportunity, to take advantage of this opportunity, is to pit Candace against the elder, more senior women. Charisse directly, but the hope is ultimately Gizelle. And it's not necessarily because she wants to dethrone Gizelle. It's because she wants Gizelle to get her comeuppance, but is too fearful of disapproval to do it herself.
Yeah.
Okay. So then where we leave off with this first look at, the inauguration of Monique and Candace's relationship is now Monique is in a pickle. Like, no, I didn't say that about Charisse. I love her. I told you to. Okay.
Yep.
And before was this before the dinner or after that that Monique and Candace have a little sit down one-on-one?
After.
It was before, right?
Yeah.
Because
it was before.
Monique sits down with Candace and says, listen, like, Charisse is my sister. So, like, I'm always going to have to be in her corner. But I really don't want y'all to be opposed to each other. I really think y'all like each other and got off on the wrong foot. The important part is that Monique told Candace to her face, listen, girl, when the chips are down, I'm not coming to support you. So
it's the weirdest thing to say in this context. Charisse is my sister, so no matter what she does and no matter what I tell you to do, I'm always gonna defend her publicly.
And then she goes, so let's hug it out. And then they embrace on a bed. It was sick. It was sick.
It was sick. And then that's what leads to this final dinner so that Monique can at least defend. I did tell you, don't come for her because I will not have your back. Ultimately, I will not have your back. Okay, so after Monique is accused of flip-flopping, Robin also looking for opportunities, takes the time. So Monique, I heard you was a drunk and that's how your accident happened.
Bringing it back.
This is to be continued. All right. So that is part 1 of the rise and fall of Monique and Candace.
Stay tuned.